Hello, welcome to the House Music Connection podcast. Today we are connecting with Jason Merle or Merla. How do you pronounce your last name?
It's Merle. Yeah, Merle,
Merle. Okay.
like Merle Haggard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. And let's see. So you are from Fresno. You're living in Fresno now, and you own the record label 4E and Records.
Yes, sir.
So
You said that one
you know.
right. That's where most people get it mixed up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a count when you're like counting music, right? Like just
Correct.
40 and 40. Yeah.
Yeah, I borrowed it as a sort of a drumming term. When
Yeah.
drummers and drum corps would get together and try to explain what beat they were talking about. That 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a was sort of a language that we use. So
Totally.
it seemed natural to apply it to the label.
Nice. Cool. So let's I know a little bit about you based off of your seeing your releases and catalog and a little bit that's of information that's out online. I know that you also did a kind of an interview sort of like this with Steve Robinson and maybe some other places. So I know a little bit based on that, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to listeners?
Okay. Well, my name is Jason Merle. That's my production name. My real name is Jason Williams, and Merle is actually my middle name. It's a family name, so it goes back a little bit. I'm 51. Like you said before, I live in Fresno, California, and I live in a neighborhood called the Tower District, which is sort of the artsy neighborhood of Fresno. I've been involved in house music since around 1996. I started working in a club, tending bar that had a house night, and was introduced to some cats that did house music, and I guess that's when I got started in house music. It's like 1996. Yeah. I do run and operate the label for Yanda. Yeah.
Cool. So have you been in Fresno since 1996, or have you lived anywhere else?
Shortly after I started in house music, I was pretty quickly drawn to the style that was happening in San Francisco. And so a couple years in, I made a decision to move to the Bay Area and sort of get in with a, bigger fish in a bigger pond. So yeah, I moved up there and was there for about 4 or 5 years, and then ended up moving back to Fresno. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people, don't necessarily know that Fresno, even though it's like small for California standards, there's still like 1 million people in the metro area. So can you say a little bit about the scene here, the scene in Fresno?
Yeah. It's, where do I even want to start with that? I was part of a scene that was way back when, and then had a kid and sort of dipped out and focused on parenting. And then when I got back in, there was a whole new group of players within the scene. All the guys that I was playing with and were throwing parties had kind of gone the same route as I had kids, got married, focused on other things. And so the scene now is obviously younger. There's a lot of really talented people that are doing things. There's different crews that throw parties that tend to be focused on different genres within the house scene than I typically drift to. So I've got to hear a lot of new music from a lot of artists that I wouldn't have normally been exposed to. There's a few different places that do venues, larger and smaller. There's some crews that have started to do some outdoor events. Fresno's got a really impressive scene. And it's been interesting for me as I've gotten back in to I went from feeling like a young guy that was throwing parties to feeling like Blue in Old School.
Mm,
You familiar with that movie? Like I feel like a really old guy walking into a really young club most of the time.
mm,
And that's been an interesting adjustment for me because I still feel 24 inside.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it is for a lot of us. Like I don't think we feel any older after 25.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
21 is a big milestone, and then 25. But after that, it's just like I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of stuck there, maybe emotionally,
Mm.
even though I have
Yeah.
kids. Yeah,
I
I'm
think,
still 25.
I think a lot of
Yeah,
people have that exact same feeling. I sure do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So with Fresno, I mean, it's 3 hours from the Bay Area, 3.5 hours to LA. Are there any synergies between the scenes in the Bay Area and Los Angeles and with Fresno?
Uh, do you mean as far as style of music or?
I mean, like collaborations, like I mean, crews kind of like I don't know, collaborating and I guess kind of trading lineups or DJ talent or whatever things like that.
I couldn't really speak to the tools that the crews that are like running stuff now are using.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really speak on how they are, what they're doing as far as what you're asking. I can tell you that back when I was throwing parties, that was a huge part of how we were able to bring talent that was probably beyond our scope or beyond what we
Mm,
could afford was
mm-hmm.
being smack dab in the middle between LA and San
Yeah.
Francisco. So, a lot of these larger artists that I was able to bring back in the day, that's how we did it. If they were playing in LA
Mm,
on Saturday, but they weren't flying out till Monday, I'd drive down and pick them up, bring them back up to play on a Sunday, and get them back to
mm-hmm.
their flight, right? And the same thing with
Nice.
the Bay Area scene. All of those cats that I really were looking up to and was playing their records, that's how we got them to come and play. We were a smaller
Mm,
town, we were a smaller budget, but we would fit in
mm-hmm.
on their off days between the big cities.
Mm, nice. That's cool. So, who are some of the people that you were able to bring through that way?
It's a long list. We were really
Yeah.
lucky, but I mean, all of the heavy hitters that you could imagine have come through Fresno at least a few times. Farina's been here a few
Mm,
times. Heather, Colette, all
mm,
Chicago royalty. Johnny Fiasco, John Larner, Slater Hogan, Jay Tripwire, Jake
mm.
Childs, um,
That is
M3.
quite the list.
Rick Preston is a Fresno favorite. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. So you launched 4 Records in 2021. It looks like.
Yep.
What was the catalyst for starting your own label?
Um, well, like I said before, I had gotten out really of the scene in general when my daughter Emma was born and was really
Mm,
focused on that. So 2021 was right when we were full pandemic.
mm-hmm,
So I had a graphic design and a photography company. I still do that. But that business took a really quick hit when the pandemic went into effect because
mm-hmm,
taking pictures of people, there's no people to take pictures of, right?
mm,
So um, this all the schools shut down, and all of a sudden my two kids were home.
mm.
And with my wife's job, she was able to work remotely. Um, so there, I promise I'm getting to the point eventually. Um,
It's all good.
I was home and had all kinds of free time and was on the computer. And so I started looking at some old music, and then Ableton was offering like a 90-day free trial. So
Mm,
I grabbed it and started, I started making some stuff again. And as I started to make music, I wanted, like, I started sharing with people, but I didn't really have this big goal of putting anything out. Um, and then I found myself being curious about what the process was like these days with, the digital realm. And I just got, the curiosity kept building. Um, part of
Mm.
part of the group of people that I was sending tracks to that were friends of mine from back in the day were John Lemon, and
Mm.
he is part of Zelon, which is a distributor. And so at one point there was part of a conversation where it seemed to make sense, like, well, why don't I just start a label, and then I don't have to worry about shopping or what anybody else
Mm.
thinks. I'll put it out on my label, and then I can get to know the process, see how distributors work, see how labels work in this realm, and feel that out. And so that was it.
Mm-hmm.
Came up with a name, came up with a logo, submitted it to John, and he was kind enough to get it started.
Do you feel like you're so there's definitely some advantages to having your own label because you can kind of like put things out on your own schedule and things like that. But I don't know. Do you feel like there's that you're missing out on potentially having a I don't know leveraging the audience of another label by not putting things out on another label? Or I mean, I guess you're probably doing both, right? You're probably
Well, it definitely has grown into that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
At first, the idea felt like it, just as you were explaining, like, yeah, I don't have to reach out to anybody. I don't have to ask permission. It's
Mm-hmm.
I'll learn how to do the metadata. I'll learn how to, blah blah blah. Um, but that sort of quickly changed, um, as things as I started putting things out and started making those old connections again and some new connections. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the questions started to come in. You know, do I want to put things out on other labels? Would I love to be on this label? Ooh, I would love to be on that
Mm.
label. Um,
Yeah.
I'd had something out on Viva before, and at one point, John liked some things that I had put together, so he put out another record on Viva, and
Mm.
that was probably the main catalyst. Um,
Yeah.
one of the guys that
Yeah,
I
it's
had
a good
reached out
label.
to, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. A lot of
tons of
history there.
history.
John's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the good guys. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Cool. So let's see. How do you go about I guess promoting because you have other artists on your label now.
yep,
It's more than just you. So how do
totally.
you I guess go about um, promoting music these days?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, right? Because
Yeah.
the model for promotion has changed so much and continues to
Mm-hmm.
change, right? Um, I
Mm-hmm.
guess back in the day when we started seeing CDJs show up, that was our big evolution, right? From just
Mm-hmm.
records to a CDJ. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that relates to the promotional style now because you see things evolving and new tools being brought in and used to promote. Obviously, social media plays
Mm-hmm.
such a large role in promotional tools, and so now video is starting to, video snippets are starting to play a larger role, and the expectations of what you should be doing promotionally are
Mm-hmm.
changing,
Yeah.
right? Um, my personal approach is maybe not so aggressive in that realm. Um, for me, I want the impression of Forianda to be um, honest, respectful, um,
Mm-hmm.
artist based. Um, I feel like, yeah, how it's perceived is probably less on my radar as how the artists feel going through the process with Forianda. Um,
Yeah.
that's sort of I want Forianda's reputation to be more based on that than, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, that video was so cool.
Yeah, ensuring that the artist experience is top of, yeah,
Yeah, it's,
top of
yeah, make
mind.
sure
Yeah,
that the
yeah.
artist is clued in all the way through the process to
Hmm.
make sure that they feel like they were treated like their music matters to the label, right?
Right.
That's my main goal, and anything that I do promotionally sort of fits into that. I try to make sure that it's my promotion is focused on celebrating the artist.
Yeah, totally. Love it. That's awesome. Okay, so let's see. What are some of the advantages that you see of releasing with other labels?
Um, that I don't have to pay for mastering. No. I halfway
Yeah,
joke that is an advantage, right?
it is. Yeah.
Sometimes some labels have an expectation that it comes mastered, so not necessarily with all labels.
Hmm.
I'm
Well, some labels
still.
seem to have.
Go ahead.
Well, some labels, not many, but like a couple I can think of. I'm not going to name names or anything, but they've kind of seemed to cut corners on like the mastering side a little bit, and I feel like the quality like maybe isn't as good as it used to be. So I still like will pay for get the records that I send out mastered just in case.
Mm,
They're, the, I don't know, every once in a while I get like a master that comes back that it's not the usual quality of the master that I am used to hearing, but I don't
sure.
know.
Well, and
Yeah.
the pool of people that may uh, promote themselves as mastering agents is larger these days, right? The
Hmm.
knowledge that it takes to do mastering properly, which I do not have, which is why I master
Neither
my
do
stuff.
I.
But
Yeah.
there are assumptions made by some parties about what goes into that and what's required and what's considered a quality master that are different from the days of everything going to records, right?
Hmm.
Uh, I I've been really lucky. I've developed a relationship with Arturo Garces, and he does all the mastering for Forianda whenever possible. Sometimes a track will come in that an artist just sends a single and it's already been mastered, and I may not I
Hmm.
may not get that until after I've gone. Yeah, we're doing it. It's signed. Send me the
Yeah.
pre-master. you
Yeah.
know, um,
I
but
said pre.
right, yeah, and impressions of a pre are different between people.
Yeah.
That's sort of, I guess I'm going off on a tangent, but I guess if there's anything that I'm most focused on is getting to a better pre.
Mm. Yeah,
Like,
for sure. I mean, I'll even for a record that I like really, really, really want to do have really shine a light on for my own catalog. I'll even send it out for mixing. I'll get it to as good as a place as I can audio wise, but then I'll send it to a mix engineer just to put that extra professional touch. And sometimes it's actually
oh,
just good to have a um, just another set of ears on your music because you've heard it so many times. So yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I have respect for that. Um, yeah, I've seen folks do that route sometimes too, where even before they send it out to demo, they'll have it mastered. Um, I haven't. I've only had one project go out that's been engineered, like properly engineered, where you send the stems
Mm,
and they
hmm.
and they remix it down.
Hmm.
I've only done that once for one record, and uh, that was a pretty incredible experience. It made me think about things in a whole new light, and that was cool.
Mm, yeah. Cool. Yeah, because we're always learning. There's so many things to learn about, this whole thing. I mean, in addition to being, music producers, we are mixed engineers, and then we have to learn how to mix really well, and then do marketing and social media and content and all that, all of that. So we're basically entrepreneurs in a way. Like we just have to wear so many different hats. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
and keeping track of it all, and keeping track of all the things that we have to do can be a little bit challenging if we're not organized and don't have a plan or a system, spreadsheets, checklists, all that stuff.
Yeah, I have some of the people that I've worked with have joked about it repeatedly, but I have a giant whiteboard. And
Oh,
so
okay.
on that whiteboard, I have all of those activities that you just spoke of sort of divided into categories. And
Yeah.
I check it off.
Yeah. So you've got like
Yeah.
a Kanban board on your whiteboard. Yeah. Nice.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
I love it. Yeah. So what are some challenges that you've overcome in your journey as an artist and a label owner?
Some challenges. Well, instinctually, I'd go right back to the mastering angle, um,
Mm.
to um, undo all of the bad habits that I've built as I've created music, in
Mm.
order to try to get to a better pre so that my masters are better. Um,
Mm.
that's my largest challenge, and that's also my
Mm.
greatest addiction. Um,
Mm.
that's what I love most about production is learning those new things. Um, Other challenges I think were facing the reality, getting back in on the digital side versus what it was like when we were making records, and how that
Mm.
process works, and the monetization of putting music
Mm.
out. Right, that's been a challenge. Anybody who's in the game now knows that it's it can be a really um, swift kick in the shorts when you realize how small the number actually is, right?
Mm-hmm.
When people talk
I
about,
mean, it really only takes like 5, 6, or 7 copies of selling a download on TraxSource for it to make it into one of like those, some of those like Jack and House or like the Garage House charts. To make it into the top 100.
yeah,
Sometimes it's as few, depending on the week, it could be as few as like 7 copies. To break that chart.
yeah, there's sort of, I've always operated on like the 15 to 20 download theory. Like you want to try to get to that number to know that you're going to break into any sort of like, hey, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
see your track without typing
Yeah.
your name in, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you the numbers are just tiny. So yeah, that's a challenge for sure. But
Mm.
I think that can be frustrating. It can also separate the people who are really in it for the love from the people who are in it to be famous.
Mm.
If that makes any
For
sense.
status. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
there are
we're
people.
still talking about just like the underground. I mean, it's like what fame are you going to achieve?
Right,
I mean, I
right.
don't know.
But I mean,
Yeah,
back in the day, if you did a pressing of a record and did 250 copies, that was a small run, right? That was a
right.
small run that you knew you were going to sell out of, but you didn't want to commit a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of money. So I'm just going to do 250, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would go through the 5 or 6 distros and end up in all the record stores, and it was sold out. And that was
Mm-hmm.
like almost every record, right?
Yeah.
Now 250 would be a top 10 track for quite an amount of time on
Mm-hmm.
TraxSource.
Yeah. It's changed so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people that can make music now, so it's been good. And I've talked about this on with other episodes. So if you're listening, do any listeners who might be hearing this conversation and thinks it sounds familiar, yeah, we talked about it a little bit, but the industry just has changed in that it's just so different than it used to be. And I don't think you
Right?
can even go into the industry these days thinking that you're gonna really that music sales, like actual sales of like your music, is gonna be a any sort of in significant amount of your income source. I mean, most people are making money based off of. I mean, you get paid like I don't know, even if you get paid like $100 for like appearing at a gig or something, that's still like a lot more than you'd get by selling 100 records. So yeah,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah. The game's just different, but that's all right.
yeah. It's almost like it's content now. It's almost like music is just like content to like build your brand as an artist. And I don't know. There's other ways of monetizing that or like making it work. And of course, like you said, nobody that's in it these days is really in it for the money because we all know that it's not going to make you money. But I don't know. It would be nice to get paid. Be able to pay for a new plugin based off of money you made from from making
Yeah.
music.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of discussions, and I've had a lot of discussions about this specific topic. Right, it's what all producers behind the scenes are talking about, laughing about, quitting about, whatever. Um, because there's so much access to being able to start a label and actually get music online um, without having any sort of knowledge of the process. You you as an artist, you run across labels that have a different way of doing things, um, and it may not
Mm,
fit in with what feels right to you. You know,
mm,
whether it's contracts or no contracts, whether it's who does the mastering, or if some guy uploads it to SoundCloud and presses master track and gives that to you and says it's mastered. Right?
mm,
That's a different idea of how things should be done. Um,
mm,
Artwork. How do you put the artwork together? What's the video like? What's the content like? Um, all of
mm,
those things are variables, and if you, as an artist, if you walk in with an expectation that there's only one way and it's the way that
mm,
you were taught, you're going to have a lot of frustration as you
mm,
go from label to label and deal with different people that have different ideas about it. um,
mm,
from the label side, looking at artists, it's the same thing. You may have your expectation as how an artist will function within the
mm,
relationship of signing a track to the label, and you know when a contract should go out, um, how you handle posting artwork, how your communications are within the process, and how long it takes you to get back. You know, those sorts of
mm,
things. Um, all of those expectations are different from every artist and or label that I work with. And so I've learned to be much more flexible.
mm,
Um, it doesn't mean that I'm willing to have things be done any sort of way, but if I learn through the process that a person's way of doing things doesn't fit with how I like to do things, it's perfectly okay for me to take a deep breath, step back, and go a different direction.
mm.
Right?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
that's maybe, at least in the last year, I've definitely had to sort of face that head on, and
Mm,
rather than me spend a lot of time looking at other people and thinking that what their angle is wrong, that's not going to do me any good. I'd rather just
Yeah.
know that this is the way I like to do things, and I can go another route.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, we're all individuals, and individuals, of course, are all different. And yeah, the way that one label owner is going to operate is going to be could be completely different from the way another label operates, and still put out a
totally.
good product. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to kind of circle back to TraxSource. And TraxSource charts. Do you
Yeah.
feel like TraxSource charts are helpful? So we talked a little bit about like it doesn't sometimes it doesn't take very many copies to get on like the sales chart. What are your thoughts on all those charts, the weekend weapons? Do they work? And then also, so there's kind of like there's the TraxSource curated charts, and then there is like the
Hmm.
DJ charts. I feel like whenever I put a DJ chart out, I mean, TraxSource wants me to do that, but is that even helping? Does anybody look at my chart besides maybe
Um,
the record label?
I mean, that's a cool question. Um,
Yeah.
you know, you mentioned TraxSource specifically, and so I'll speak to how they do their charts as I answer this question a little more thoroughly. But
Mm-hmm.
Beatport and Juno does charts too, and
Mm.
all of these different services do charts. You could put Spotify into that realm. When you make a playlist,
Mm.
that's a chart of some sort,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I do think it can help. I don't think
Mm.
it can hurt, right?
Yeah.
It can't hurt you to do a chart, but there are different types of charts within the system that we're talking about. So let's talk about TraxSource specifically, right? So like you have
Mm-hmm.
weapons, essentials,
Mm-hmm.
all those types of charts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think that within the development of the algorithms within those sites, specifically TraxSource, I think being in those charts helps um,
Mm-hmm.
because it gets more eyes on your stuff. If it's in the chart,
Mm-hmm.
either you know either consumers are going to go check those charts, and usually like maybe somebody who's not as experienced or doesn't have as much of a deep background into the music yet, they're going to go to those
Mm-hmm.
hype charts, weekend weapons, because that's a way for them to sift through the noise and sort of
Mm-hmm.
find at least what their impression is of what the folks who matter are playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's in there for a reason. It must be good, right? From a consumer
Mm-hmm.
point of view. Um,
Right.
from a producer point of view or from a DJ point of view, you, you're thumbing through those charts to see if you're in them. And if you
Mm-hmm.
are in them, you're also checking out the tracks that are around you.
Yeah.
So that helps, right?
Yeah.
That's those charts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
do I think they make or break your track? No. You know,
Mm.
I think there's a huge part of the community that sees something in the weekend weapons and goes, "Well, I'm not playing that because
Mm.
every other cat in town just went and downloaded that list."
Yeah.
Could be true, but there's so much music
Could be
out there.
true.
What are the odds, right?
There's so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you
So
got?
much music.
Yeah, it's not like you got 100 records in your bag and some guy plays 6 of the records that you plan on playing, and now you're down to 94. Okay, still not a problem. I got 94 other records. You know what I mean? But with
Right.
digital files, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of these cats are walking in with their whole collection, wondering why their drive loads slow. But then
Mm-hmm.
they've got endless directions to go, and so do you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
it's that's my take on that side of it. Um, on
Mm-hmm.
on the artist charts, I think those are helpful in a different way. Um, I think we get that endorphin rush by seeing the people that we respect say they
Mm-hmm.
respect our stuff, and so there's an interpersonal like, "Hey, thanks, man, appreciate the chart,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you
Right.
sort of see through socials. Like, "Hey, thanks for the support." People have
Right.
whatever their stock answer is. but it feels good to know that another artist is
Mm-hmm.
charting you. Does it help with the algorithm? I don't really know. I
Yeah.
would think that it probably does, especially for some larger tracks. Maybe if something gets like 40 charts or 50 charts,
Mm-hmm.
that's
It's
that means
significant. Yeah.
something. Does that equate into
Yeah.
sales? I have no idea. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I just wonder. I mean, sometimes I don't know. I see like people sometimes like do like 40 or 50 tracks in a chart, and they're doing this like regularly, and it's like I don't know. Like I just have to wonder if what the motivation is there, because like I mean, and I'm not trying to call anybody out specifically. I mean, I've experimented with different ways with charts and whatnot, and so I'm not saying that anybody has the wrong or the right answer or the right way or the wrong way of doing it, but sometimes I wonder, is that person really just do they really like the track, or are they just trying to get me to like chart their tracks, because it's what they're
Mm,
looking for, a quid pro quo, whatnot. I guess it doesn't
yeah.
matter either way. It doesn't really matter, but at the same time, like if somebody's like charting my track, but then they never play it in a mix or anything like that, or they never play, they're not playing that track that they say they like, then I feel like there's lack of authenticity there a little bit. So I don't know. I think I just have to wonder what the motivation is. Like, why even like chart that track if you're not going to play it or buy it, or
I think that's a quality point. I really do.
yeah.
Um, I think there is um, a portion of the activity that is sort of geared to what you're saying, where they're just throwing a bunch of tracks up there and they're hoping to maybe develop connections through charts.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe that works for some people. Um, Maybe in combination with some other things that might help, right?
Hmm.
Um, but sometimes when making charts, there is, and I think a lot of producers would agree, that there's a sort of an unsaid pressure about feeling like you want to make sure that you chart some people that are working with you, opening doors for you,
Hmm.
supporting you. Um, you want to return that favor on one side of it,
Hmm.
right? It's a way of being thankful and appreciative. Um, but I do think that there's a fine line between, like, I don't want you to rinse me,
Totally.
but I do um, deeply appreciate if you like my music.
Hmm.
And so, whether that's genuine or not, there's no way that we're going to know simply
It's
through
true. Yeah.
charting whether that's true or not. So,
Yeah.
I try to make part of my day is reaching out to artists and saying, dude, that track is sick,
Hmm.
right? In Messenger, right? Or if we're on email
Hmm.
terms, I will email and say, dude, this track is sick. I cannot wait to play
Hmm.
this out. I love this about it, right?
Hmm.
Um, I, I teach my kids that, to, if you have to apologize to somebody and you just say, I'm sorry, that doesn't really do much. I am
Hmm.
sorry for this,
Be
and this.
specific.
I am
Yeah.
sorry for
Totally.
doing this, and this. I'm not going to do this again. And here's what I'm going to do to make sure that I don't do that again. I think
Hmm.
that policy works in how we push each other as well, right?
Hmm.
If I send you a track on promo and you thumbs up it, thanks, right? Listen,
Yeah.
say something about it. Hey, I really like those hats.
Hmm.
I love the way, I love what you do with the reverb on your snares, especially your tops. I just love that. something that
Mm,
lets a person know that you actually did listen, I think goes much further.
totally. And we are, it is hard as like somebody who wants to support support others. Sometimes we just get so inundated with I know sometimes it depends on like what day of the week it is that we get that sometimes. And like, you know, I don't know, like I've gotten messages before where I've done just like the thumbs up. And it's not like to disrespect anybody. It's just like to, because I am so overwhelmed with like kid responsibilities and taking people to karate lessons and piano lessons and rock climbing class and all that stuff. And then also trying to make my own music and then work a full-time day job. And then, oh shoot, I meant to like get, I meant to listen to that track, but
I totally feel that. That's why I
yeah,
have the whiteboard.
yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah,
and I totally get that, and that's a real
yeah,
thing. Um, it's something that I work on.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I did. Oh, I remembered what
I,
I was going
I
to
need to work
say.
harder. Yeah.
I
Oh,
remembered what
good.
I was going to say when I forgot. We were talking about some of the frustrations of of having the label, um, and
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to. I felt like we were on a precipice, and maybe it still applies to what we're talking about now. But one of the biggest frustrations within the industry is that nobody's buying music.
Mm,
Nobody's
yeah.
buying music, right? Like actually
Mm-hmm.
going to TraxSource, making a cart, putting their debit card in, and buying music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably the biggest downfall within our genre right now. And the reason why we
Mm-hmm.
can't support each other is that.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, but even just the general public isn't buying music now. It's everything is streaming. And like I said before, it's almost like music is just like another form of content for
Right,
promoting, like for marketing the artist. And then the artist like makes the money on the back end, like by merchandise and, shows and perfume lines or whatever, makeup
right,
brands or whatever,
right.
you know? Yeah.
Forienda made more money in merch than it did in music the last two
Mm,
years.
yeah.
And it's not even close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and it's also interesting when, okay, so when you get like, you see that 60 people, I'm just making these numbers out, like 60 people charted your track, but then you get the report from the label and like 40 people bought the track. And like, I understand that maybe you're charting it because you got it on promo, but like when more people are charting your track than are buying it, that I think that's a problem.
yeah.
Because
I keep waiting for that. That's another sort of bubble that I keep waiting to burst. Is I would love to be able to use a promo service to push my records. I would love to be able to use a
mm,
promo service to push the artists on Forianda.
mm-hmm,
But it seems that if I'm paying $300 for a promo service to sell $40 of music,
mm-hmm,
how am I supposed to justify the 260 that I lost?
yeah,
Where's the just
right,
as a general business model, right? Like I wouldn't go to
mm-hmm,
Burger King and order a Whopper meal and then only get 3 fries and then not question where my burger went.
yeah,
Does that make
for
sense?
sure, totally,
So I can't help but feel like um, the means don't justify the end. I want them to. I wish they did, but
yeah,
it's just the market is different now, and so
mm-hmm,
those promo services are promoting to mostly a producer realm. Yes, producers or DJs, I get all that, but
mm, right,
um, you're immediately taking that whole circle out of the purchase end because they
Mm-hmm.
already have the track. And
Right.
who's left to purchase?
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
circle is so small already. If you're doing a good job as a promo service and marketing to the right people, those right
Mm-hmm.
people are the ones that were going to buy the track. So,
Right.
and there aren't a lot of us out there that are making the effort to, if I get something on promo, I'm buying it if I
Mm-hmm.
like it, right? Like if I respond to a promo and say that's in the bag, I'm looking out for it. So when it comes out,
Right.
I can support it. But I don't think a
Totally.
large part of the scene is doing that.
Right. Yeah, it's just about like how much do we value music and the whole supporting artistry and what's important to us and whatnot. Or maybe some of us are jaded and we're just like, okay, well, I'm not getting paid, so why should I pay for it? So I don't know, whoever knows. But
I think we
yeah,
all
and then
have those
also I think
feelings sometimes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that I think these promo services they used to promote a little bit more, but now they're more like just distribution services. They distribute the copies out, but they're like you said, they're not really actively promoting. They're just
There's
kind of giving you the music.
well, there's different services, and all kinds of services operate in different ways. That being said, um, what I tend to see is that so you have a group of people that are doing promo services, right? And then there's
Hmm.
this sort of sales force that they have of people who have made sort of a business of premiering tracks,
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
these promo services are networking out to people who write articles and people that do
Hmm.
premieres, right? And then based on how many active listeners these premiere people have, I don't know if money changes hands there. Like, does the promo service pay the premiere person to premiere a track? How does the premiere side monetize what they do?
Yeah, I don't
But
know.
they're Yeah, I don't know. Um, I
Yeah.
just don't see. I would love to see a value in it. I would love to have the 300 to give them every release so that I can push it.
Hmm. Yeah.
But until I see until I see a promo service that creates sales, then
Hmm.
for me there's no real purpose. And maybe that's just because I'm
Yeah.
not
So
popular enough. Maybe the labels, my label doesn't do well enough. So maybe that's why. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know that side of things. I barely know the artist side of things, and I you know released a few records, but I don't really and I've worked with some labels, but I don't know how any of that works really. Yeah, it'd be interesting to find out like the whole follow the money to see where all the money where some of that is being made. Now some of that, and I know that Defected Records like, or I don't know, but like I've been through other conversations. I mean, a label or a big brand like Defected, they're making a lot more of their money like based on the events that they throw, like the Defected Croatia and like the Ibiza, and like when they come to the United States and do their 7-city tour in the United States or whatever. That's way more profitable than
Right.
the music side of things for sure. So
Well,
have
isn't
you
that
ever considered doing events? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say that. Isn't it that ironic that that's really it's you flip it on its head and then it actually is done the old school way, right?
Hmm.
If you want to play a party, what do? You throw a party, right?
Right.
That was the way we were all told back in the day. You want me to book you in an
Hmm.
event? Well, where am I going to play? You don't even throw a party. Well,
Right.
Defected sort of on a large scale working on that same model, right?
Mm.
They're throwing parties because that's where the money is, and they're using
Hmm.
that money to promote the brand, which then in turn helps the party.
Yeah. Right.
I have
Yeah.
respect for that. I just don't
Totally.
have the money or the following to jumpstart that. And especially in
Yeah.
this new scene, um, the way that, in Fresno in particular, I feel like who I would want to bring wouldn't be what the kids want to see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough game for sure. I've thrown some
Totally.
parties, and it's hard to make money. And
Totally.
with the same roster of artists that we grew up listening to, it's there's just fewer and fewer people our age that are just going out. And I mean, there's still some that are, and there has been kind of a resurgence as people's kids have gotten older and people are going back out a little bit more. But you're seeing things like earlier events and a lot of day parties, and
Yeah.
you know the fees. Um, I don't think that all the artists have caught up with the times of the fact that the fees aren't going to be as high because there there just isn't the same kind of market that there was before.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so they don't get booked because they're expecting certain fees or whatever. But then but from their perspective, like, why do they want to go play somewhere where all they're getting, I mean, where just their travel is, they've got families too, and they'd have to leave their family. And so if they're only getting basically travel expenses reimbursed, then is that really worth it to leave your family? Sometimes, maybe, if just for fun, whatever, but
Yeah. On
not on a
occasion,
regular
but I would.
basis. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to be on a full travel schedule with my kids at
Yeah.
home. Now
For
that they're
sure.
teenagers, they don't want to be around me as much. So, leaving to go play a party every once in a while, that's fine. They're like, yeah, deuces,
Yeah.
right? Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
even still, I wouldn't want to be on any sort of worldwide travel schedule, because I would miss them terribly, and I'd be a miserable human being. If I didn't have
Yeah.
children, sign me up,
Right. Yeah.
right? Yeah,
Totally.
yeah. Or I should throw my wife into that equation as well, not just the kids, but the
Yeah.
wife. If I was
Yeah.
single and had no kids, sign me up.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't want to get in trouble with the
Totally.
wifey.
Right. Yeah. Well, every once in a while, it's like, "Okay, get out of here. I need some time." Yeah, and you
Yeah.
need that. I need that if you're happy.
If I had to live with me, I would need that too. That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you produce, like, when you're kind of in the scene or in the game, like before you took your break and then you came back and started again, or did you kind of have to start over
I think there was an
or
evolution
is that when you
there.
first started? Yeah.
When I first started playing, um, yeah, I was playing and buying records, right, and sort of starting to fall in love with labels and fall in love with different producers and production styles and that sort of thing. Um, Through that evolution, you realize quickly that if I want to play more parties, I need to book parties, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that led me to, well, I want to book these DJs and producers that I'm buying their records, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do that. I wanted to bring people, to show people, like, dude, this is Johnny Fiasco. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So you do that, and then you realize within the process that part of the game becomes, um, you book somebody that you respect, and then on the back end, you may get to play with them in Chicago, or when Miami rolls around, you go out to Miami and you get to play all these parties with all these, people that you respect, and you build those connections, and then the trade off starts to happen. You start to realize that that happens in the production realm, right? You start producing
Mm.
records, you do a track on somebody's label, they do a track on yours. There's that give and take. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, when you threw parties, did you have any, was, was your promotion strategy just bring in a big name and that'll attract the people, or were you kind of pounding the pavement, to get people to spread the word as well?
Yeah, I think it started as just being so in love with the music that I
Mm,
wanted to be involved,
yeah.
and that was the way, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that was the main goal initially, was just to, I don't know, people get obsessed with an NBA player. To me, Johnny
Yeah.
Fiasco was like LeBron James or whoever you want to throw into that. You know,
Yeah.
I had so many of his records and loved his production, and the chance to have him play on my equipment in my town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was it. You hope that people
Mm,
would come. You hope that
mm,
people would come, but I always operated under the theory that you throw a party to lose money. If you're throwing a party to make money, it's not a party.
mm,
It's a party's meant to
yeah.
celebrate something, and in the house music realm, we book DJs to celebrate those DJs.
Mm,
It's a celebration, not a business model. It's part of how we found ourselves in this hole, is by thinking about parties that way.
mm,
So
yeah.
I was lucky. The party that we threw over time grew, and we were able
Mm,
to make money and not lose money in the end. But that money immediately went to flyers for the next party.
mm,
You know?
yeah. So it's just all reinvesting it and just growing it as a labor of love. It comes up,
Yeah,
that term. Yeah, that term is what kind of a theme throughout the podcast, episodes, is that, this is definitely a labor of love. We're all doing this for the music. Do you have any like big music projects that you're looking forward to that are upcoming?
um, yeah, heck yeah. Um,
Yeah.
Dan Leno and I have been working on a lot of new music lately. Um, I think we have like 5 or 6 projects right now that are like in the pipe. A few of them haven't been picked up yet. We're sort of making that decision whether to um,
Mm,
shop it or just put it out on one of our labels. Um,
mm,
some really nice deep stuff that we're sort of gearing up for
nice.
winter. Um, we do a lot of jackin stuff because we tend to get
Mm,
asked to do that, and I'm super thankful. But
mm,
both him and I, like, we really enjoy when we get to focus on something that's deep
mm,
and maybe a little more minimal. We love making
mm,
music like that. Um,
mm.
yeah, yep.
Cool.
So we got that. I have a release coming on House Salad Music in August, which I'm really excited about.
Very cool.
Yeah,
House Salad
yeah,
is,
that'll.
it's, yeah, a great, mix series, and they've got a good label, and yeah, it's almost an institution, if you will. So
Yeah, it's one of
that's
those.
exciting. Yeah.
It's one of those labels that I love, right?
Yeah.
So when I shopped music to Enrique or Big Pack, um,
Hmm.
it's usually with the assumption like there's no way that this shit is going to land on that label, right? Like this
Yeah.
is. I swing for the fences every once in a while and go, oh, this sort of fits in their category. I'm
Yeah.
sure it's not good enough, but I need to force myself to try, right?
Hmm.
And then he liked 2 of the 5 things that I sent, and I was just shocked. Like, oh my gosh, this is so great.
That's
A
awesome.
lot of that, a lot of those experiences happen just that way. I swing for the fences with no intention that it's going to work out, and then lo and behold, they like something.
That's cool.
I, yeah, yeah,
So
still surprised.
is Forianda accepting demos from other artists?
Yeah, I sort of have an open door policy with demos. Um, if you send it, I'm going to listen to it right away. You are not going to wait 3 weeks. If you send something to Forianda, I'm going to listen to it right away. Whether you email me or instant message me or whatever. And I don't care if you send it in a SoundCloud link or if you throw it as a download. I'm not going to make you send it twice. Um, I love the process of somebody
Mm,
sending a demo, and I know what it feels like to send one and have that ache in your belly, wondering if they're going to
mm,
listen, if they're going to get back to you,
mm,
let alone if they're going to like it, right? So it's really important to me that Forianda creates an environment that feels different. If you send me a demo, I'm
mm.
going to listen. And if I like it, I'm going to ask to take it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it can be a little frustrating if the if you know that the record has been listened to, but then there's like some like no response or like a non-committal response, like, oh, okay, you know what this is. Yeah, just like either you like it or you don't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I think it's important for labels to remember that the artist that has sent a demo to you is
Hmm.
it, that process means something to them. And
Right.
it's one of the hardest things to do as an artist is put your work out there and go, what do you think? To somebody that you
Hmm.
respect, right?
Right.
So for me, it's important to honor that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. So I'll be sure to include a link to the label and then your socials as well.
Oh, cool.
And then before we close, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, I want to make sure that I say thank you to you. It was an honor that you thought to have me on. I know that you could have a laundry list of names that I would tune in to listen to, and so I'm just really honored that you asked.
Well, I appreciate you being on. I do like to, just get a wide range of, people in our scene, and the goal is for us to all feel more connected to each other because we don't get to go to record stores really anymore anymore these days and just talk
Right?
shop or whatever. So hopefully this is filling that gap for some people. Hopefully it's, I definitely feel more connected. I love these conversations, and I'm grateful that you said yes. So it goes both ways.
Right
So
on,
thank you
man.
for being on. Hey, friend, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. As producers today, it can be really overwhelming to keep up with all the tasks that we need to complete. So I've created a free toolkit that can help you. Call it my release roadmap. This tool helps you to gain clarity on all of your tasks related to music production, demos, releases, and social media so that you can spend more mental energy on making music. Learn more about this free roadmap by visiting tonyfuel.com/roadmap or click the link in the description below. Again, that link is tonyfuel.com/roadmap. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.